human brain.
Yeah. Well, I would agree on that. I always wondered why the robots never came in on a more industrial level and actually took over some of the jobs. There's obviously different speculations about that, and I think at the end of the day, I've heard it argued, well, human beings are cheaper than the robots. It comes from an economic point of view, but at the same time, I would also argue that the current leaders that are in charge of things know that if humans also had too much free time, they would start thinking about things like corruption and why things in the world are in such a bad state, and they couldn't have that either. But what is your take on that? Why haven't we seen this kind of revolution in terms of the industry, really, that robotics should be at this point?
Because television, radio, the news media manages the news that you get. In school, they do not teach you how to find meaning in your own life, how to relate. In other words, books that would help people, such as The Tyranny of Words by Stuart Chase, Language in Thought and Action by Hayakawa. We don't have semantics in school. We don't even know what the problems are. People cannot state the problems. They say if only people would behave decently. Well, that's nothing. That's a bunch of noise. When you consider language, it was designed thousands of years ago, so people talk at each other rather than to one another. I know most people don't understand that, but our language was designed so many years ago that it doesn't have a reference for what we speak. When we say to a person, have a nice day, that doesn't mean you don't control the weather. You can't make them have a nice day. People just talk at each other. They don't know what they're saying. Even the word love. Nobody loves everything they've ever done. Sometimes you like yourself, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you say, what a stupid thing I did. So think about this. If you lived with a replica of yourself, how long would you be together? So, you see, people, even if you're married, sometimes you'll love your wife a great deal, sometimes a little less. Sometimes, how did I get into this situation? So you see, love is a fluctuating thing. It's not a constant. Once people understand how the brain works, how people relate to one another, they don't have all the problems they have today. You wouldn't have any psychologist, any psychiatrist. What do? They adjust you to this stinking, worn-out, obsolete system. If they had any intelligence, they'd never adjust you to this system. This is an early stage, and we are not civilized yet. As long as you have armies, navies, prisons, police, and human exploitation, we are not civilized. Not yet. We never can design the best city. We can only design the best city we're able to up to now. 2 years from now, it'll change. People think I'm a utopian. I am not a utopian. I cannot conceive of the ideal city or the best laptop. I know they'll keep changing forever. There are no final frontiers, no absolutes in nature. Once you understand that, when people are conditioned or educated to accept change, then you'll have the beginning of the scientific age.
Today, people aren't taught critical thinking. They're taught, they do rote memory today in school just to get a job, to be a cog on the wheel. Scientists are not multidisciplinarian. They're taught maybe rocketry or just one particular discipline in science. And this way, they can use scientists and abuse them to make weapons and rockets and weapons of mass destruction. They couldn't do that in the future. The scientists would ask, what are we doing this for? What's their point of view? Isn't there a better way of solving problems than killing? So it would be a very different type of educational system.
Absolutely. And I mean, in terms of utopia as well, comes from the Greek not place or no place. So obviously that's not what you guys are talking about here. You're talking about a real place that you want to create. I guess, let me put it this way then, in terms of the question of where to begin this in terms of implementation. If we look at this, let's say you were, and I don't know how this would go about or under what authority, etc. Well, exactly. We can actually, I want to rephrase that because I just thought about something else. Would this be something that you would have to approach and get a stamp, okay, go ahead stamp from the authorities, as it were, or are you seeking now a situation where you just can begin to build on the system? Let's say a city or a town or something like that. Would that be a step to begin, or how do you approach that?
Well, first we're at the introductory educational stage. People are learning about this, and if they don't know about it, they can't advocate it. Jacque and I have no money. We have no power. People say, well, when are you putting this into a reality? We can't initiate that. If we have enough people that understand this direction and work towards it, it might be a possibility. What we would like to do next, what Jacque and I would like to do next, is a major motion picture that would introduce to the general public life in a resource-based economy. People really don't know what the possibilities of the future are and the positive possibilities. They've just seen negative things about the future. And then we'd like to show, in this future, show flashbacks of how we get from here to there, from today's world. And it would help answer people's questions, the general questions that they all have, because they're all pretty much the same as you travel all around the world. So this would be most helpful. And we think that when people walk out of that movie, they'd say, why can't we do this now? Why can't we live like this now? And they'd see the difference. And then we'd like to, ideally, at the end of the film, we'd like to show that we're breaking ground on the first city. And Jacque can talk to you about his city's approach.
Absolutely. Just let me ask you before that then as well. Is this something you see that a city already, an existing big city, like let's take Paris or whatever, New York or something like that, would the city still be there and one building at a time would be replaced? Or are you, when you're thinking about this, are you thinking it from the point of view that, no, this is something that needs to be rebuilt outside of whatever the city areas are today? How do you approach this?
Yes, I can try to answer that. A city should have transportation that's different than what we have today. Today we have automobiles, trolley cars, buses. They all have to stop at red lights. You'll see a traffic jam in every city at a red light. You're wasting fuel and energy all over the world because they all operate the same way. If your transportation system was 30 feet off the ground, you can take people anywhere in the city without stopping at a red light. If you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Buses and streetcars waste energy. The electric companies love it. And as long as you design a system that doesn't waste energy, you will be hated by people in the system. There are metals today called memory metals. You can design furniture that's compound and curved, then flatten it out and ship flat chairs to China. When it gets there, you connect two electrodes and it becomes a contour chair. The same for buildings. We can do self-erecting structures without plasterers, cement mixers. All the things that you have today are obsolete. Your schools are obsolete. When a teacher says to a child, that's wrong, there's no information in those words. It doesn't tell a child anything. Think about it. When a teacher says, that's not what I told you, that doesn't give a child any information. They don't even know how to talk today. So the schools will be updated so children will have information and access to it. Not only children, but adults. Information in all areas. For example, we will know how to make Leonardo da Vinci's by the thousands. We'll know how to make creative people, because most people think it's an inborn quality. Some people are lazy, some are good, some are bad. No such thing. There are no good or bad people, and there's no human nature. There are environments that produce certain kinds of behavior. We will get rid of the environment that produces socially offensive behavior.
Just again, let me return to that question. Existing cities that are there today, would they be demolished or replaced? Would they have to be converted, if I put it that way, into the system that you're proposing?
No, we would do new cities from the ground up. Our cities today are a tremendous waste of energy. They're polluting, they're detrimental to people's health, and you can't do patchwork within the cities that we have. You really have to design them from the ground up.